ABC News headquarters in Washington, I'm Howard K. Smith.
I'm Frank Reynolds in New York. These are tonight's headlines. 9,000 troops begin arriving in Washington for duty, if necessary, during the anti-war protests. Trouble in the fuel system may delay the Apollo 12 launch scheduled for Friday. Welfare Secretary Finch recommends to the White House that the use of DDT be virtually ended over the next 2 years. And in New York, 3 gunmen hold up a Wells Fargo armored truck and steal more than $1 million in racetrack receipts. Howard?
And reports tonight from Sam Donaldson on the leadership of the new mobilization, Jules Bergman on problems with Apollo 12, Gregory Jackson on the rise and fall of DDT, Jim Kincaid on the Battle of Bù Đắp in Vietnam, Russell Jones on trouble beneath the calm in Israel, and Bob Clark on the uncertain future of Judge Hainsworth. Details on these and other stories in a moment.
Introducing new extra-length Raleigh filter longs.
Now they are longer and milder.
Try new extra-length Raleigh filter longs.
Now they are longer and milder. Raleigh's are, and now they're extra long.
And you get another extra, the famous Raleigh coupon.
Raleigh's are, and now they're extra long.
And there's a new lighter, longer menthol Bel Air filter longs.
Bel Air tastes light, 'cause the menthol's right.
It's the lighter, longer menthol.
New Bel Air filter longs.
Look for the famous Raleigh coupon on new extra-length Bel Air filter longs.
Tomorrow night around this time, the big anti-Vietnam moratorium march begins. Single file at first, turning into a mass march and rally on Saturday. It will continue unbroken for 3 days. Since the final ground rules were agreed last night between marchers and the Justice Department, tension in Washington has declined. But just in case, regular troops began moving into the nation's capital this morning, and ABC Pentagon correspondent Bill Downs was there to see them come in.
The camouflage C-130 troop carriers from Fort Bragg, North Carolina, began arriving at Andrews Air Force Base during a sodden dawn. Paratroopers of the crack 82nd Airborne Division were the first of some 9,000 troops ordered on anti-riot standby duty through the rest of this Washington week. Tonight, a regiment of the 2nd Marine Division will begin arriving from Camp Lejeune, North Carolina. Most of these troops are Vietnam veterans. All of them have had intensive crowd control training. Defense officials emphasize that this mini-mobilization is only precautionary. To critics who charge that it's provocative overreaction, officials point out that the troops will have minimum visibility and will remain on federal installations unless there's trouble. These men are heading for their mobilization weekend home, a tent city at Bolling Air Force Base, less than 3 miles from the national capital. Bill Downs, ABC News, Andrews Air Force Base.
Meanwhile, the Moratorium Committee is laying its last plans in what some members like to call a condition of creative confusion. It's a much different organization from the one that first launched the idea, as ABC's Sam Donaldson reports.
The Moratorium Committee of October 15th fame is still here, but this week's big anti-war demonstration is not theirs.
This protest is sponsored by the new Mobilization Committee, whose 60-man steering council reads like a who's who of radical American protest. It includes Communist Party member Arnold Johnson and some avowed Trotskyites and socialists. One of the co-chairmen is Dr. Sidney Peck, sociology professor at Case Western Reserve.
I would say that I'm a radical opponent to the war in Vietnam in the sense that I think that it's a war of intervention and aggression, and I want it to end immediately.
Dr. Peck is currently under an Illinois conspiracy indictment stemming from the Chicago Convention disorder. Another co-chairman is Chicago's Sidney Lands, longtime labor and civil rights worker, outspoken anti-war protester since 1955.
Amongst the people who will be marching with us are some who believe in a victory for the Provisional Revolutionary Government, and there are quite a few who merely stand on this simple slogan for immediate and total withdrawal.
Stuart Meacham, a Quaker, is a co-chairman. He traveled to Hanoi last year and arranged with others the release of American prisoners. David Dellinger, another co-chairman, is one of the defendants in the current Chicago conspiracy trial. The peace movement is only one of his interests.
It's also clear that we are anxious to do away with white racism, and in that way to assist our black brothers attain their liberation.
Ron Young, the project director for the March on Washington, is not new at helping organize mobilization activities. He did it in 1967 for the March on the Pentagon. He is presently under indictment for failure to comply with the draft.
The organizers of this week's demonstration are generally older, more radical, been at the anti-war business longer. Whereas the October 15th committee had a great number of idealistic amateurs in the front ranks, the new mobilization is guided by battle-scarred professionals who want not only to end the Vietnam War, but ultimately to change a great many aspects of American society. Sam Donaldson, ABC News, Washington.
The president spent this moratorium eve in this way. First, he met with an Army major who escaped from a Viet Cong prison camp last year. Then he welcomed a delegation of congressmen to the White House who presented him with a copy of that resolution supporting his Vietnam policies. 300 congressmen have now indicated they support that resolution. Finally, the president and his 10 visitors called Henry Cabot Lodge in Paris to receive assurances that their show of unity is considerably strengthening our hand in negotiation. We'll be back with more news in a moment.
My, this is some fancy food.
Nothing is too good for you. A wine with the dinner, sir? Mogan David Rosé. Mogan David Rosé? Very good, sir. Light and sweet. Very good, sir. Mogan David Rosé?
You name dropper.
Be a name dropper. Ask for Mogan David Rosé wine.
Mogan David would like to settle its differences with the American public. We make great sweet wines, but we also make 4 superb dry dinner wines, and that's an entirely different story. They're the European kind, not sweet at all. They go well with food, and maybe a little candlelight. This is our Burgundy, hearty, robust, and sophisticated. You really ought to try it. It's a different kind of Mogan David wine. Burgundy.
Apollo 12 is scheduled to begin its mission to the moon Friday morning, but there is uncertainty tonight about the prospects for an on-time liftoff. A problem was discovered today when technicians loading 2 liquid hydrogen tanks discovered one was leaking. Details on the launch problems now from ABC's Jules Bergman at Cape Kennedy.
We won't know until late tomorrow whether Apollo 12 can be launched on Friday. Here's what has happened. The hydrogen leak took place in one of the 2 small tanks here inside the service module of Apollo 12. The hydrogen is used to provide the gas for electrical power for the fuel cells. Engineers first struggled to empty the tanks and lines. The hydrogen is highly inflammable. They'd already pinned down the leak to the tank, and rushing, still planning to launch Apollo 12 on Friday, pulled another tank from the Apollo 13 service module, now being checked out here. Then a backup tank was flown in from California. The new tank will be installed by late tonight. The replacement will have to be proof tested, pressure tested by filling it with hydrogen, then the fuel cells themselves will have to be checked. If Friday's launch is scrubbed, the new launch time will be shortly after 2 o'clock this Sunday afternoon. And if that fails, there will be at least a 1-month delay until the moon and the Earth are again lined up properly in space for America's second moon landing. It's going to be tight, but most engineers at the Cape tonight are optimistic about the chances of launching on Friday. This is Jules Bergman, ABC News, reporting.
Yet another of our 20th century miracles fell into official disfavor today. DDT, hailed for 40 years as the answer to all of our pest control problems, went the route of cyclamates and MSG. Welfare Secretary Robert Finch recommended that the use of DDT be phased out within the next 2 years.
We have abundant signals to justify this very strong remedial action. At extremely high dosage, DDT has produced cancer in mice, and there's no question but that DDT has become a pervasive pollutant in the environment and does pose a very serious threat to the animal food chains such as fish, bird life, and other mammals in the ecological chain. The period of 2 years is time enough for this change to be made. because we have to balance this with the certainty that our nation's food and the food supply is protected.
The fall from favor of DDT probably began with a famous book by Rachel Carson called The Silent Spring. That touched off the investigations that ended with today's ban. For a look at the short and now unhappy life of DDT, here is ABC's Gregory Jackson in New York.
About as close as most people ever get to the controversy over food contamination by DDT is when they go to their local supermarket, or if they really go rural, when they stop in at the fresh fruit stand. One rarely sees DDT today, but everybody knows it saved thousands of lives in the Second World War, killing lice and other bloodsuckers or sprayed on malarial mosquitoes. And it was used on millions of people without apparent ill effect. In fact, they gave the inventor a Nobel Prize, and manufacturers have been turning out tons of DDT ever since. Much of it is exported to help our Asian friends. As an insecticide, DDT was discovered by scientists developing chemical warfare weapons in the 1930s. They noticed that the DDT they were experimenting with kept knocking dead the insects they were trying to test it on. By the 1950s, DDT was everywhere and in everything, and many of the bugs it was developed to kill can now live with it. But no one knows how much a human can safely tolerate, and the average American today still has more DDT in him than the Food and Drug Administration allows in an apple on the market. This is Gregory Jackson, ABC News, New York.
We'll be back with more news in a moment.
How do you like it?
If you're about to buy a new car, look to General Motors' Mark of Excellence. It means the kind of sturdy construction you get in Body by Fisher. A good, solid body. With deep down quality. Body by Fisher. Only in cars from General Motors. With this mark.
West Quoddy Head, Maine. The Coast Guard couldn't operate a lighthouse this way, but we used a special 12-volt system to power the beacon. Every one of these house lights, headlights, and then start this car all at the same time. With one R59S Delco Energizer, even at 0 degrees, it can produce up to 3,250 watts of cranking power in the first few seconds. Delco Energizer at this sign.
Light 2, departing for Moscow. Light 2, departing for Moscow.
It's been so much fun being your guide. I've enjoyed every minute of it. One last question. You Americans have such nice hands. Do you use something? Oh, yes. Jergens.
What a shame they don't have Jergens lotion in Russia. In America, more women soften their hands with Jergens than the next 6 lotions put together. But think of all those red hands we could be softening. Jergens is the #1 name in softness. And now there's a soap with enough softness to wear the name Jergens. If you like Jergens lotion, you'll love Jergens Lotion Mild Soap at a very mild price.
The overall scale of fighting in Vietnam tapered off somewhat today, but there were several sharp clashes, and the communists kept up their pressure on American Special Forces camps near the Cambodian border. North Vietnamese forces mounted rocket and mortar attacks against the Bu Prang and Duc Lap Green Beret outposts, but did not follow up today with ground assaults. There are reports that the Allies are sending reinforcements into the area. Presumably, these would be additional South Vietnamese troops. The American command indicated a few days ago that United States ground forces would not be sent to help the South Vietnamese. One of the Special Forces camps hit by almost daily rocket and mortar barrages is at Bu Dat, just a few miles from the Cambodian border. Troops of the American 11th Cavalry man artillery bases supporting the outpost, and they and the South Vietnamese have taken heavy casualties in the last 2 days. The North Vietnamese have also kept up a steady fire at helicopters landing and taking off from the base. Most of the fighting has been at night, but at no time can any of the camp's defenders relax. ABC's Jim Kincaid was there during last night's attack and talked with the captain of the cavalry division.
Captain, the enemy was coming in force last night.
Well, this is battlefield. We're still here. They're not.
How long do you plan to stay here?
Oh, we'll probably be moving today. We think they withdrew towards the north or the northeast and, northwest. So we'll, as soon as we get resupplied here, we'll move on out that direction and see if we can catch up with them and finish them off.
The 11th Cav spent about 3 days out here. Civil irregulars have been here, too, and they've been fighting the NVA, an entire battalion of NVA troops, which are coming from about 2 miles away, where the Cambodian border is. These soldiers are fighting a very determined enemy, an enemy apparently determined to take over this territory for his own uses. These people intend to see that that doesn't happen. This is Jim Kincaid on the Cambodian border, South Vietnam.
Israel's defense minister Moshe Dayan said tonight that Israeli air power prevented the Egyptians from launching an offensive across the Suez Canal during the summer months. Dayan said the Egyptians would not attempt a cross-canal invasion without air superiority, and that, he said, they do not have. Israel's ability to meet the external threat from the Arabs is well established, but the Israelis are paying a high price. The cost of the war and its impact on the nation is not always evident. Here is a report from ABC's Russell Jones in Tel Aviv.
I suppose this could be any place along the Mediterranean coast, or for that matter, any warm weather place in the world where relaxed outdoor living is a way of life. But the scene is deceptive, for this is Israel, and life here is anything but relaxed. Every day the headlines tell the story. In the 2 years since the Israelis won their lightning victory, the level of violence has risen steadily. There are raids and counter-raids. The death toll of the Six-Day War was 679. Today, the cost of peace has reached almost 2/3 of that figure. There is almost constant fighting on every front. The Suez Canal, the Jordan Valley, the Golan Heights of Syria, even on the Lebanese border. Behind the combat lines, perhaps an even grimmer struggle is being fought between the Arab guerrillas and the Israeli Army of Occupation. In Gaza, the situation is so dangerous the area can be entered only during the daylight and then at your own risk. The ABC crew that shot this film traveled in a car with American license plates. An Israeli number is an invitation to a sniper or a grenade thrower. The response of the Israelis to any attack is swift and direct. Any house believed to have sheltered a terrorist is simply blown up. The Israelis hotly deny published reports that more than 7,000 houses have thus been destroyed, but they do admit blowing up at least 350. Our request to film such demolitions was rejected by the Israeli authorities. The occupation and the constant fighting cost the Israelis more than blood. There is also a drain on manpower, with the call-up age for reservists recently raised from 49 to 55. What effect this is having on the economy, no one who knows will say, nor can anyone say what the effect is on the fabric of the nation. These are some of the things that you don't see when you're sitting here in an outdoor cafe, but they are the facts of life of Israel 2 years after the war. Facts of life that show no sign of changing. Russell Jones, ABC News, in Tel Aviv.
In India, Prime Minister Gandhi has become the center of a new political struggle. Conservatives in the ruling Congress party have voted to expel her, but she says she's staying. Party members are now beginning to choose up sides. We'll be back with more news in a moment.
Unbearable. That's what it is. Unbearable. Tourists. Australia is crawling with tourists. And I know who's to blame. I know. Qantas. That's who. Qantas. What a name for an airline. Every day, every single day. hate Qantas.
It was on August the 18th, almost 3 months ago, that President Nixon nominated Judge Clement Haynsworth to the Supreme Court. Tomorrow, the Senate will begin its final round of debate on that nomination. The prospects that the judge will be confirmed are not bright, as ABC's congressional correspondent Bob Clark reports.
Most senators, even those who aren't saying so publicly, have made up their minds how they'll vote. And most of the best head counters in the Senate think that Judge Haynsworth will probably be defeated. The expected margin is about 53 to 47. But with intensive pressure from the White House on anybody who shows any signs of wavering, nobody in the opposition is claiming yet that victory is certain. Emotions are running high on both sides.
I have to satisfy not just my own constituents, but I have to satisfy my own conscience. And in going through this record, I couldn't live with my conscience if I were to cast a vote against Judge Haynsworth under the circumstances and under the record as it's been made.
It seems to me we've reached a place in this debate, and certainly we are at a time in history, when the individual impact on Clement Haynsworth or Birch Bayh, or as far as that's concerned on Richard Nixon, is not important. What we are trying to determine is what is good for the court, the Supreme Court of the United States. It's been subjected to more criticism than in most of our memories, any other period. And I think the time has come when the determination should be made on what is good for that court, what is good for our country. And it's for this reason that I think Judge Haynsworth shouldn't be put on there.
Several days of what is expected to be very bitter debate begin tomorrow, with the final vote deciding the fate of Judge Haynsworth next week. Bob Clark, ABC News, Capitol Hill.
One of the Senate's veteran Democrats announced his decision to retire today. Florida's Senator Spessard Holland will step down after 23 years in office. He's 77 years old. Frank?
In other news today, at the trial in Chicago of the so-called Conspiracy 7, Judge Julius Hoffman revoked bail for Jerry Rubin and issued a bench warrant for Rubin's arrest. The judge acted when Rubin walked out of the courtroom without notice. Rubin's co-defendants would not say where he had gone, but it was later reported he had left for a speaking engagement at Rutgers University. A big and apparently successful robbery took place in Brooklyn today. 3 armed men held up a Wells Fargo armored truck on its way from the Aqueduct racetrack. They got away with about $1,400,000 in cash. 3 guards on the truck were handcuffed, but otherwise not harmed. In San Francisco, 2 more communications have been received from the person who calls himself the Zodiac Killer. Details from ABC's Dick Shoemaker.
The new letters from the Zodiac Killer were sent to the city room of the San Francisco Chronicle. One of the letters is 7 pages long, and in it Zodiac brags he's killed 7 people. He taunts the police for not finding him, and he says he will do his thing again. There was also a greeting card. It said, "Sorry I haven't written sooner. I just washed my pen." And there was another message, this one signed with the symbol of the Zodiac and written in code. The experts have yet to decipher the meaning of this cryptogram. Police Inspector Martin Lee has been working on the Zodiac case for the last 2 months.
First of all, he is described in all the media as an insane person, a screwball, and all this sort of thing. And I don't go along with this. I think, and I have studied all of the letters, I think that this man is legally sane.
Zodiac wrote police their composite picture of him is not a good likeness, except, he said, "I do look like that when I'm killing." The police have some leads, but they said an arrest in the near future is not likely. Dick Shoemaker, ABC News, San Francisco.
A new twist on aerial hijacking occurred today when 2 18-year-old students tried to get a Chilean jet to fly them to Cuba. They failed. The plane developed engine trouble and had to return to the airport at Antofagasta. The hijackers then switched to another plane and took off again, but the crew of the second plane overpowered the young hijackers and brought them back to Santiago. Late today, another hijacker did succeed in diverting a Brazilian plane to Cuba. We'll be back in a moment.
There's something exciting about this man. She likes being near him, close as she can.
There's something about an aqua.
Whatever he does, she's willing to try. Things seem more exciting when he's close by.
There's something about an aqua.
Famous ice blue, manly redwood, cool frost lime. Try all three ways to bring out the Aqua Velva man in you.
Hurry and shave. It's time to open up the shop.
Take a minute.
Electric razor?
Sure. From Williams Electric Shave. Electric Shave makes my whiskers stand up. Lubricates my face. Close, comfortable shave. Feels barber close with Williams Electric Shave.
Barber close? It does. Quiet.
Everybody should look for the big L. First letter and... regular, menthol, and frost lime.
Blabbermouth.
There was a time in this country when the most newsworthy activity of campus cut-ups had to do with swallowing goldfish or smearing paint across the wall of Old Main. Now the goldfish are safe, but Old Main is more likely to be occupied than painted. There may be some who yearn for the old days, but Howard K. Smith is not among them. Howard?
Frank, last night something happened here in Washington akin to the Russians' discovery of a Stone Age mammoth perfectly preserved in a Siberian iceberg. Students at Howard, our highly activist, mostly black university, occupied a girls' dormitory and gave it up only when their non-negotiable demand was achieved, namely the acquisition of articles of female lingerie. It was a panty raid. There was something nice and nostalgic about it, like finding an old Victrola in your attic for a while. Then followed the moment of truth. One had to decide, do we really want that from our students who will shortly, whether they wish or not, inherit the nation? Every man must answer that for himself. After grim thought, I decided for the present and the future and not the past. Panties, if the thought is not risque, are for girls. Students are for problems awaiting solution. I could do with a little less hypocrisy in some members of the rising generation, like the belief of some of them that civic morality lay undiscovered until they came along. But even with a little unkempt hair and an occasional excess reckoned in, I'm for the new spirit of concern. We've got lots of problems. We need all the help we can get to meet them. The past few years have revealed something new, a vast reservoir of new civic energy in our students. When responsibility directs it, it can make all the difference. Frank?
Thank you, Howard. That's tonight's news and comment. I'm Frank Reynolds. Good night.